The first quality of great portraiture, it's been said, is the power to reveal the inner character or story of the sitter, that every person habitually wears a mask in the presence of his fellows, and it is only in moments of unconsciousness that he drops it. The great portrait painter must be able to discern and seize the true self, revealed in instantaneous flashes, and then veiled once again. Such an artist is fully equipped. If we know who the sitter was, and something of his life, so much the better. But even the portrait of an unknown may be so charged with meaning that it will exercise a complete fascination for us. The great portrait master writes the story so plainly in the face that the picture needs no label. So is Titian's Man with the Glove has appealed to us more powerfully than many of the identified portraits by the same masters. Combined with psychological insight is a second, equally important quality of the portrait painter, the power to give lifelikeness to a sitter. In a great portrait, the blood seems fairly coursing through the veins. We seem to be looking at a breathing human being, not a picture. We have the sense of a real presence. This is what we call vitality. One has to do with the physical, and the other has to do with the subliminal. Vitality does not, however, require motion or even excessive animation. It was a still later development of the art, as photography debuted, to adapt portrait painting to purely artistic ends, to make it, first of all, a picture. The portrait must also tell a story. This is what makes such painters as Philip de László so interesting. His painterly brushwork becomes the story in his portraits. As we look at the demonstration, albeit a very early film and a bit rough around the edges, nonetheless provides us a glimpse of what a truly fine work of art a portrait can and should be. We see his fine drawing skills are very sure, which is a must for portrait artists, and it goes without saying that the artist must have full command of his materials. De László is effectively using the general sight-size approach to a certain extent, where the artist must step back several feet in order to grasp the whole scene. His model sits patiently, while the artist must look for the animated expression that conveys the appropriate look, animated and alive, as it were. The evolution of portrait painting as it took hold in the 19th century in particular, with the spontaneous ebb and flow of the process shown here, became the standard. Carolus Duran and John Singer Sargent made a huge impact with this method, which became popular with artists thereafter. In a general way, usually somewhat loosely, portrait painters are distinguished as subjective or objective, according as they put most of themselves or their sitters into the picture. If the subjective element is something to be desired, the painter is the more eagerly sought after, especially by those conscious of their own lack. It is as if he had a princely gift to bestow. Nobility and distinction were conferred by Titian and Van Dyck, whereas grace and charm by the French and English schools of painting in the 18th century. The artist Philip de László was born Laube Fülöp on the 30th of April in 1869 in Pest, before it was joined with Buda in 1873. He and his younger brother Marci took the Hungarian name László in 1891 as a patriotic act, as did many of their fellow countrymen. De László came from rather humble origins. He was the eldest son of a family of 9, of whom only 5 children survived. From an early age he was driven to succeed as an artist, and was sustained by his hard-working nature. He found employment as a set designer, painter, and sign writer, before being apprenticed in 1884 to the famous portrait photographer Sandor Strelitzky. This enabled him to support his mother, his father having largely disappeared from family life. While fulfilling his 3-year contract, he entered the Budapest School of Applied Arts in 1884, and then the Drawing School in 1886, where he earned his first state scholarship. His talent won him a place as a student at the National Academy of Arts from 1885 to 1889, with Bertalan Szekely and Károly Lotz as painting instructors, followed by the Royal Bavarian Academy of Art in Munich twice in 1889 and 1891, and briefly at Académie Julian in Paris in 1890, under Jacques-Jules Lefebvre and Benjamin Constant. During his formative years, de László devoted himself to history and genre painting. His first royal commission came in 1894 to paint the royal family of Bulgaria. This was followed by Emperor Franz Joseph in 1899, and a commission from Queen Victoria to paint her favourite general Sir George White in 1900, which was a decisive year for de László. He painted members of the German imperial family and travelled to Rome in the spring to paint Pope Leo XIII. This picture won him international fame and the grand gold medal at the Paris International Exhibition that year, and he was finally able to marry Lucy Guinness, whom he had met while studying in Munich 8 years previously. They lived in the studio house de László had built in Budapest, before moving to Vienna in 1903, and then settling in England in 1907. They had 5 sons: Henry, Stephen, Paul, Patrick, and John. In the following decade, de László established a reputation worldwide, and was proud to be appointed as a member of the Royal Victorian Order by King Edward VII in 1909. His major patron, Lord Selborne, encapsulated his extraordinary achievement by exclaiming, "Has any one painter ever before painted so many interesting and historical personages?" The studio was filled with portraits in all stages of finishing, and a wide variety of compositions that included dignitaries, ladies, gentlemen, young and old, groups or single-figure canvases, truly a working studio that optimizes a successful and full life for the artist. A long way from his modest beginnings to the very heights of society. In the pictures shown we have just a glimpse into the many people de László painted, such figures as Sir Walter Townley, a diplomat, the penetrating portrait of Judge Turner, and the fine-looking portrait of Paul de László, the artist's son. Then we have a study and formal portrait of Augusta Victoria, of Hohenzollern-Sigmaringen, titular Queen of Portugal, and the half-portrait of Victoria Eugenia of Battenberg, Queen Consort of Spain. On her chest is the Order of Maria Louisa, and following is a striking profile portrait of Princess Beatrice. Adding to the mix of portraits are 2 interesting huntsman paintings, one of Hudson Eubank Curley, 1st Viscount Devonport, and the other of a youthful Count of Covadonga. De László was also a portrait painter to Warren G. Harding, President of the United States, who is pictured here with the artist. In addition to his long, well-established career as a grand manner portrait artist, de László was as skilled in other genres, including still life and plein-air pictures. He developed with a lively color palette that possesses the lightness of touch that gives us an airiness and feels completely spontaneous, as can be seen in this short clip of the artist painting out of doors. One can sense the joy an artist feels when painting from nature with the freshness of life all around.
Now here we've moved again very rapidly, and we're in Venice, painting the 2 famous bronze horses outside the Doge's palace. Those horses are about 2,000 years old. They were made in ancient Greece, and then they were captured by the Romans, and then when the Roman Empire moved to Constantinople, they were taken to Constantinople, and they were finally brought back after hundreds of years in Constantinople, and they were made of bronze and gold-plated. Unfortunately now, hundreds of tourists have been out there, and they are now, instead of treating the horses with great respect, they climb onto the horses and take photographs of one another on the horses. Now, when my parents were together, they were always making jokes at one another's expense. And this is what my mother is obviously making some comic remarks, do you see?
These types of pictures offer a welcome change from the discipline of painting portraits, dealing with appointments and the challenges of creating something new each time for the client. Now, turning to his other canvases, it is interesting what one can see in nature if one is motivated to look for it. Some painters see nature as almost monochromatic. Others see it as polychromatic. One sees the immensity of its details and analyzes its component parts. One may look for the big facts and another for the little ones. One is moved by the simplicity of nature and another by its complexity. Perhaps the highest and rarest gift is the power to see the big things of nature, the real essentials, those which reveal and stamp upon the mind of the painter those fundamental qualities by which it is expressed. If an artist is so disciplined when painting from nature as to accept only those things which are truly characteristic, and paint them in their true relation to each other, in their just values, then their pictures will possess that quality so difficult to define, which we call style. And de László was that kind of artist, sure of his convictions, and resolute in his determination exactly how to convincingly reveal it on canvas. The patron who accepted the de László point of view was rewarded for his pains and his money with a beautiful work of art. He was sure of a picture whose subdued colour harmony would never jar, and would always be restful. Characterization and vitality not lacking, and in their place a certain added distinction could be counted on. Such refinement in colour must inevitably impart refinement to the subject. By the time of his death in 1937, he held 22 orders and 17 medals of merit bestowed on him by royal and presidential sitters. De László left a legacy that is once again receiving its due respect alongside the great portrait artists of his time. The grand manner portrait may have lost some steam at the later end of the 19th into the 20th centuries, but the time has now come to re-evaluate his contribution to the art of the portrait, and that what one decade required would be overturned by a succeeding decade is a natural course of events, and ultimately talent and skill always rise to the top, and fads come and go as quickly as the wind. We have seen how a painter like de László has come to the very heights of fame through great industry and talent that will now remain. And finally, we hope you enjoyed the work of Philippe de László and our presentation to honor him and his work. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already, and leave a like too, as it helps the channel to grow and allows us to seek out more fine artists. So till next time, bye for now.